I want you to imagine a land filled with Vikings who battle and have cities built around the skeletons of dead gods. That's the book I want to talk to you about, and that book is called The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Hello, friends, and welcome to Red's Cafe. I hope you're having a good day today. It's nice and cloudy today, which is perfect for reading and drinking a cup of coffee. Hope you've got yourself a drink. As I mentioned before, we're talking about the book, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Awesome book. I really enjoyed it. And as I've mentioned before in my first or second video, this channel is meant to be a relaxing environment, a positive environment. So I'm really not going to critique much of anything. If I'm going to spend time making a video for you all, it's really going to be about what I like about something, a video game story series, the books that I'm reading. So that's the thing I highlight. But I'm really wanting to sit down with you in my cafe. Again, if we're enjoying some coffee or tea, if that's what you prefer, and really just talking about what we like. And so that's what we want to highlight today. So Shadow of the Gods is a really cool story. It's the first book that I've read by John Gwynne, who I understand to be a big Viking aficionado, if that's how you want to describe it, or he loves to be a reenactor. That's what's cool about that, is that he has a lot of knowledge about actual Viking history and lore and culture and thought, but now taking it into a more fantasy style world. And we're in the continent of a place called Vigrid, if that's the correct pronunciation he was intending when he wrote it. What's cool about this world is that, and really fascinating, is that long ago in the story, there were gods who battled each other. And they're all animalistic. So there's a snake, there's a wolf, there's a dragon, a rat, etc. A great event happened, I believe it was thousands of years, or 1,000 years, or X amount of years before the story takes place. Essentially, the gods kill themselves off, and the only thing that's left is their skeletal remains. These things are huge. In fact, looking at the map of Vigrid, the mountain range that cuts in the middle of this land is essentially where a snake god fell. And upon collapse, mountains sprung up from its death. And actually a city is built inside of its skull, which is really fascinating in terms of the size. The city almost has a perpetual twilight to an extent because it's always shaded by this skull for the most part. The story itself is about three characters. You've got Orca, who is a huntress who's living on a quiet land with her husband and son. You have Elvar, and she is effectively I don't know if princess is the right word. She's the daughter of a jarl. And then you have Varg, who is a thrall, a slave, who has escaped and is joining a band of mercenaries that are really cool. The mercenaries are called the Bloodsworn, and this whole trilogy is called the Bloodsworn Saga, I believe, or the Bloodsworn Trilogy. I really enjoyed it. I really thought what was cool about it was you had that mixture of, our Viking lore and our Viking culture. John Gwynne would even go so far as to put in the descriptions, if he ever mentioned the armor, which I believe the pronunciation is Brynja, he would italicize it. And so, there's Brynja. I believe the shorter, sword-like daggers are a sax, if I remember correctly, S-E-A-X. And so it was really cool to see the different things that he would put in there. The ships had different varieties of ships and sizes, in the names that he would use there. And it was really engaging. It was really easy to pull you into this world through the perspective of these different characters. And writing a story that has a perspective of different characters is really cool because, again, it's almost like one of the writing challenges that I've done before is have a person riding on a horse in the middle of a Western town, okay? Let's say this person is a doctor. Well, what are they going to pick up on when they're riding through town, right? Well, they're probably going to notice the health of the citizens and pay attention to something along those lines, and just the quality of the town. Now, let's say you have a soldier. What are their perspectives? A bounty hunter. What are their perspectives? A farmer. Right, you get the idea, right? We can all look at the same thing. We can look at my bass guitar over there and have a different perspective of what do you view that instrument to be, in terms of quality and how it impacts the band. I play bass guitar, so I'm going to look at it in a much stronger light. What are your thoughts of The Legend of Zelda? What was your experience like if you've ever played it? Right, we're all going to have vastly different views on it. A good friend of mine has also played Ocarina of Time at one point and enjoys it, but he doesn't have the same perspective that I do about it and the same love of it, because our background, really builds who we are. And so it was neat to go through this story with these three characters. Orca, she is a huntress. She's living off the land with her husband, and there's some mystery behind their past. Something aggressive, something powerful, whatever it is. But it was really cool to go through that and see that with her and her raising her son. And what was interesting too is that there are effectively these things that are like demons that come in all shapes and sizes. They have one living on their land that's bound, right? There's a lot of power behind oaths and binding in this world, which was really interesting. With Orca, that's living off the land, she lives there, has like a little demon guarding her land from other demons. And then with Elvar, she's the daughter of a jarl. She's almost had everything given to her, but she doesn't want that. In a world where meritocracy is key, where what you earn and fight for and your glory, your battle story is very important to her. In fact, so she leaves what could be a cushy life, doesn't want to be wed to some other, city and be someone's property. She wants to be a warrior herself and fight her way through glory. And it's really cool to see that perspective. And then you have Varg, who is or was once a thrall on a journey for revenge, and ends up becoming a member of the Bloodsworn organization, mercenaries, however you want to call it. He has proved himself in fist fighting and such along the way. While he was a slave, a thrall, he would make good money for his owner. So he kind of shows that he's accepted into this organization over time, through showing his battle prowess, essentially, and building his own glory. So overall, I thought the book was really cool. I thought the setting was really interesting, and I'm really excited to read the other two books. I found it to be quite captivating, and John Gwynne does a great job getting you kind of engrossed into the story. For me, a really good book, is going to be one that just pulls you in. It's very immersive. You can just sink your teeth into it, and you really feel like you're a part of this place. And the way he describes armor and equipment, which he does in great detail. He very often will describe the equipment and weapons they're carrying almost every time. He'll even repeat it with characters that you've already read about, because maybe they've donned their armor or doffed it. Another fascinating part of this world is what they call the tainted. In some way, the gods themselves, before they died off, were able to spread their blood and power into humans. And so you would have different humans that can take on different aspects of the different gods. So you would have one person who is very good at sniffing out and finding people or targets, and that would be somebody descended and tainted with the hound god. You would have people who would be very powerful and strong and fierce, and that would be the berserkers, right? Taking on that classic story of being able to transform into a bear. But what they are is they're tainted half-bloods with the bear god, right? So you see a lot of these different people who have different aspects of the different gods, which is really interesting. And there might be some of the main characters that have those traits that you don't see until towards the end of the book. But I can tell you right now, they're really cool. So it's a really good story. And again, I really like how you see the growth of these characters and the different encounters. Obviously, if you're living in a world where Vikings battle and there's skeletons of dead gods, it's not a puffy fairy world, right? There's a lot of death, a lot of grief, anger, a lot of the negative emotions that really motivate the characters to do what they do. Like I mentioned before, Varg, he is on a quest of revenge. He is trying to find out who killed his sister. And one of my favorite things of the book is that, without going into too much spoilers, now I will say up front, I guess not up front, I'm however much time I'm in by the time I'm done editing this. But I will say that I'm always going to kind of go into spoiler territory. I'm either going to assume that you've read it or just let you know that some things are going to get spoiled, but I will warn you so you can kind of stop if you really get excited and want to talk about it. There probably will always be, a spoiler free-esque section and then one where I'll kind of do a deeper dive. And it's usually not going to go too deep, but I can be pretty picky with spoilers. My friends they know who they are, that I'm really picky. It can be the slightest thing, including even like the tone, like, oh, I really liked how they felt about it. Like, don't tell me that. But what I wanted to go into is just, it's, at towards the end of the story, all three characters culminate into one area towards the end. And so I thought that was really cool. You see these three different perspectives, and it's not the first time I've read a book, and probably not for you, even if you haven't read this one, where we're going to have all these different perspectives that unite at some point. Brandon Sanders with the Stormlight Archive, you're going to see that. And that's a series I can't wait to go into later. Overall, definitely a big fan. I thought this was a really cool setting. I've already got the other two books, so I'm looking forward to talking to them. I might even have a separate video that I put in on my book videos that talks about the whole series, as once I finish it, go into the whole thing. So like, for example, if I finished Harry Potter, I would talk about what I thought about the big picture. To give you an example, Brandon Sanderson, the Stormlight Archive, right? It's going to be a 10-book series. He just released the 5th book, which is the Wind and Truth. It's 2 5-book arcs, but he already knows the end of the whole thing. It's really good to come back and look at the book as a whole, right? Because typically you're telling the story. A book is usually broken up into, 3 parts normally, with exceptions. But if you think about it, most times trilogies are really a popular format. So then you have the trilogy, the series is broken up into 3 parts, with each having their own 3 parts. And so I will probably talk about that, the series as a whole. And what's it called? Is it just The Blood Swarm? Is the name of it, the whole trilogy. This is my first John Gwynne read. I know that he has some other series that are really good, and I'm excited to go into those. And of course, we'll talk about that with you all whenever we get there. But I definitely was enjoying that a lot. It was a really cool series. Makes me excited. Makes me want to go watch Vikings or something. And for those of y'all, I may not have said this yet. I can't remember if I have or not. But, at some point I want to write my own stories. In fact, you can find one of my short stories on Amazon. It's only $1, and it really was not like my best work, right? I really haven't done a deep dive into writing. It's just me really, the reason why I put it out there was to kind of force my hand of wanting to do more. So, I eventually plan on releasing future works, probably on Amazon at some point. You're more than welcome to take a look at it. It's okay if you don't want to. But reading is a key thing, that it's very inspiring, and it's really important to read if you're going to want to write. In fact, I have right here Stephen King's On Writing, and one of the things he talks about is like, how are you going to be a writer if you don't make time to read? Because you want to see what's good and what's bad out there. And again, you guys know I'm an optimist, so it's really hard for me to find the bad. But what does good look like in terms of quality, and how do people write differently and provide different perspectives? So for example, John Gwynne, he's putting a lot of emphasis on just what the equipment is that they wear, and making sure there's the pronunciations of the Brenya and the different weapons and things that he utilizes, because he himself is a huge fan of Viking history. It's neat to see that, and again, that's why it inspires me. I want to write more one day because of my passion for stories. So hopefully that's a skill I'll grow later on, and I might release a video down the road of kind of going into my journey with that a bit more. Like I said, I have a short story. It's a sci-fi short story, and I will be going into sci-fi and fantasy. My next book I'll talk about will probably be a sci-fi book. You can expect the next video to be for a video game. I just finished one that I want to talk about. I want to talk about Elden Ring eventually, but man, that's a big one. That's a lot to talk about there. Again, I'm doing the Ali Abdaal 7-video challenge, and the key thing about that is, they typically have a prompt, and I've done that for the first 3 videos I've released on this channel, right? I did just the rapid record yourself on the phone, holding it up. It looks bad. It's okay. I don't mind that. Why am I making this channel? What is my passion? And now I really want to dive into what is this going to be about. There's some exciting things coming to this channel in terms of how it's going to look. Right now I'm in my thrown together office space, but there's going to be some changes coming in the future that I can't wait to show y'all down the road to make it feel more like a cafe. Just want to thank you again for coming to my cafe. and letting me go on and on about a book that I really enjoyed. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I just want to thank you again, and feel free to leave a comment. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought about it. And if you've read any of John Gwynne's other works, let me know what you think about those too. So thank you again, and I hope you have a blessed day.